Welcome everyone. Zach Fine here with my father, Jonathan Fine. Welcome, Dad.
Hi, Zach.
I've got Dad on to talk about this project that I was talking to my friend Colin about recently, called 060 Over 60 Pathways to Fulfillment in the Second Half of Life. And we've been looking at what we were researching a few years ago with you, Dad, Colin, and another friend, Simon, and revisiting it. And you've had you've noticed that you've got a different perspective. You're actually about to turn 70, and you've come back to me with some of your thoughts and questions that you think could be useful for men in this space. Just tell us a bit about what's changed for you in the last few years.
Um, there's definitely a change. I think it's probably when I try to articulate it, it probably doesn't sound like much of a change. But if I take myself back to 65, I had this sort of feeling that there was still a lot to do and a lot to try and organize. And there was a kind of slight obsession with trying to organize my family and make sure all of my children were doing as well as they could do. And my grandchildren were on the right pathways to a good life and stuff like that. Maybe I had a bit of an obsession with that, to the extent that I think I may have neglected my own sort of views about myself and what I should be doing. So it's going to sound awful this when I say it, but I almost found that what I've been doing over the last year is thinking less about other people and thinking a lot more about my wife and myself, and a
Mm.
sort of recognition. And it's like an icy cold drip of water down the back of your neck, a sort of I don't know, a point where you sort of recognize that actually your kids don't really need you and your grandchildren don't really need you. And actually, nobody really needs you. That's just the way it is. And that what you really should be doing is thinking about you and how you're going to enjoy the last third of your life. And what are you going to do in this space that's been allocated to you, hopefully? Um, And that, I think that's quite a change. Well, it was definitely a change for me, and I'm not saying anybody else would experience the same thing. I think to some extent I've been lucky that I've had my children and my grandchildren, and actually I'm a great grandfather now, at a very young age, relatively speaking to other people. So
Mm.
I've kind of been through the pain with the children. I've sort of enjoyed the grandchildren, probably sooner than most people my age would have done. But I've now arrived at a point where I kind of think, I don't feel as though I can do anything else. I'm not even sure if I really want to, because your children make their own choices and you got to be careful you don't suffocate them, and you give them enough space to make their mistakes and have their victories and their successes, without trying to be involved in everything that they're doing.
I have
Sorry
seen
about
you.
that, Zach.
What's that?
So sorry about that. If it
I
sounds a
don't
bit dodgy.
apologize. I think
Mm.
that sounds healthy, but I have seen you. You've been playing tennis. You in the last 5 years. You never really did. You flirted with things that you enjoyed, but basically you just worked all the time,
Yeah,
particularly when in your 30s, 40s,
yeah,
50s, just flat out.
yeah, and I would say up to probably my early 60s.
Yeah.
There wasn't any. I didn't slow up really. I think I kept the pace up. I think COVID was as it was for everybody, a bit of a turning point because things changed in a very positive way for me because I could. Yes, okay. She's going to the sunbed. Um, so no, I think COVID really did have a quite an instrumental impact on how I ran my life because suddenly I could actually do all the work I needed to do in a day, a week. and
Because of no travel.
no travel.
Mm.
I'm probably exaggerating saying a day, maybe 2 days a week. And so it sort of released me and created space. I mean, there was a kind of bit of a guilty feeling for a while, but because of the rest of the nation was suffering the same thing, it was probably, kind of, I suppose, ameliorized to some extent. I didn't feel like I was standing out because I wasn't doing anything because everybody
Mm.
wasn't doing anything. Um, and from that, I drifted into, well, as you say, playing tennis and sort of doing stuff that was sometimes had no purpose and certainly often had nothing to do with making money. It was just like new stuff.
Well, when you say no purpose, no purpose in the old paradigm, but it does have a purpose. It's about you. You've been really healthy. I've seen you look in the last 5 years. You've looked better than you probably did 10 years ago,
Yeah,
or more sometimes.
yeah, I say no purpose. Of course, you're right. It is a purpose. There is a purpose, but in sort of my to my meaning system, time is important and how you use it, and you can't squander time, and you have to be able to optimize your time, whatever you're doing. And it isn't necessarily about, working every hour so you get more money. It's about not wasting time. So I don't think playing tennis is wasting time, or going for a walk, or driving my little tractor, cutting the grass down at the mill. I think that's really good use of time. Nothing to do with money. It's just I have a thing about not wasting time.
Mm. So, what's the opportunity here for blokes at your point in life? What's the invitation? What's your understanding of it?
Well, it's exciting. I think that's the first thing to say. It's like it's something to embrace um, with enthusiasm, and I think the sort of pullbacks that I get are senses of guilt, thinking is is this right? I have nothing to do for the next 6 weeks except swan about Spain
Mm.
in a villa and having a nice time eating out and spending time with my wife. Is that right? Can that be okay? I find myself saying, and I'm almost looking for permission that, yeah, no, it's okay. No, you've okay. You've kind of worked for the last 50 years, so it's all right now to stop working and you can go and do these other things. So I think that permission is a big part of it. I think a sort of rejection of these kind of synthetic highs, and synthetic highs in my mind are things like buying a fancy boat or buying a Porsche or,
You've
buying an
tried
expensive.
those.
I've tried all those things. And quite honestly,
Tell us the story about the 911 turbo.
well, it wasn't, it was just a 911, but
Oh,
it
right.
was, I'd say just a 911, but it was really, I mean, the story about that was really, I'd actually got a secondhand, I bought a secondhand Porsche Panamera, which is a four-door saloon. And a really lovely car. And I really liked it. And I had it about a year and I had to go in for a service. And I took it down to the Porsche dealer for the service. And as I was picking up the car in the showroom was a brand new model 911, which had just come out. I think it was called 991. And normally with a Porsche, there's like a 2 year waiting list. And I said to the sales guys walking out, I said, what's the waiting list on that? Not even thinking that. And he said, well, you can have it if you want it. And I said, I can have it if I want it. Are you being serious? And he said, yeah. I said, so I can actually buy it. I don't have to wait. No, you don't have to. You can buy that car if you want. So I said, okay. And I bought it and very excited and felt it was a real trophy in my life, great sense of achievement. And I drove it home, which is about 120 miles from Exeter, I live. And I parked in my drive. And a year later, I drove it back to the Porsche dealership and it had 310 miles on the clock. And I sold it back to them at a whocking great loss. I mean, I think I blew about 12 grand on it in a year. Um, totally pointless. I didn't like it. I liked looking at it, but I had absolutely, well, first of all, my wife wouldn't go out in it with me because in case somebody saw us, which to me was the whole point of having the thing. Hopefully, somebody will see us and think, "Oh, look at that fellow over there. He's successful." But it didn't have any effect at all. So I took it back. Um, I did a similar thing with an expensive boat. So I've been through those kind of things, and they are just synthetic highs that
Yeah, and there's a bit in that. I remember you explaining it to me where about you said, I feel more comfortable when I'm paying something off, like when I feel the pressure of maybe I've borrowed money to buy something like an expensive car or whatever else, and then you have to get your fees, you have to earn your fees to pay it off, and that was that
well,
was
it
a
just
kind of
provides
happy
a
place for
purpose.
you. Yeah,
Yeah, it kind of
you
provides
didn't
a
have.
purpose for life.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the complete opposite of that is that last year, or maybe it's the year before, yeah, 2 years ago, I bought a car, a little sports car, for 5 grand. Actually, no, 4.5 grand, four
The
thousand five hundred.
TT.
Yeah, absolutely love it. I'll probably never sell it. I never, I just, it does every, and it gets scratched and I like it when it gets scratched. It sort of builds the relationship between me and the car. So it's sort of like, I think it's a great maturing of my meaning system that I can move from the nonsense of spending all that money on a very expensive car you don't use to buying a really cheap product, that cheap car that not only use but really enjoy using. Really
Mm.
makes me happy when I get into it and drive it. So I think all of this is part of this kind of maturing process of the man, of the mind. It's taken me out of that sort of uh, meaning system, which is about gaining success and being defined by success. And the nice thing about my tennis group is that, and there's probably 20 guys in this group, um, and they all come from different walks of life. I would say they're all pretty much high achievers or have been, but nobody ever asks you, what do you do or what did you do? Nobody's really that interested. And we're just a bunch of people that have arrived at a place in time. And I think what's happening with me, and the reason why I'm saying it's different from when we talked about this when I was in my early 60s, which is when I think we did start talking about it, up to me approaching my 70th birthday in a few months' time, is that I've come to terms with all those strange little um, requirements of me to be successful and being able to demonstrate my success. It actually doesn't really mean anything to me now. I can
Mm.
happily park it away and just maybe live my life in a quite a different way, without the need to, you know, be defined by anything, So I think I think there was a period where I started defining myself as being a grandfather, and I've kind of moved almost beyond that now. And I'm sort of saying, actually, I'm just Johnny Fine, and my wife's Janet, and we have a really nice life, and that's it. There isn't anything else kind of hanging around it.
You mentioned before we did this call as well that you've been surprised by the uh the connections through the tennis group, the messages that men might receive and send to each other, and this sense of almost tenderness. Is that too strong a word?
Uh,
Or
maybe
thoughtfulness?
thoughtfulness may be more appropriate, but um, probably not that unusual for anybody that has had a lot of friends, through their life. I haven't. I haven't had. I've had very few friends in my life. Not, not because I've I'm a terrible person or anything, but I think that I limited the amount of time I could invest in friendship. Is probably a better way of thinking about it. So suddenly, when you gradually, as you start to build friends, and you sort of learn how to be a good friend, and you learn about people and their lives, you become a bit more entwined with them. And so
Mm,
it's quite, it's quite nice to get a note to say, uh, from somebody that you don't know terribly well, I hope everything goes okay on Thursday because I've mentioned something that's happening on Thursday. It's nice. It's very nice.
mm.
It's kind of like a surprisingly nice feeling.
I think with a lot of men in their 40s and 50s, their wives mediate the friendship network and social things. And often, if a man gets divorced, he's in real trouble because of that. That middle-aged men, are very poor on the whole at maintaining friendships, probably for the same reason you just described. So, what you're experiencing in the tennis group is friendship that isn't mediated through Janet. It's just,
Yeah, just me.
yeah. And you're
And
all there for the
I've got
same
her.
reason. So, you have a way of relating and you're all
Yeah,
interested in that.
yeah, the common denominator is something that we do together, but I think there is a bit of an exploration and um, an exploration on life. Sort of suddenly you find yourself talking something to somebody, about something that's quite deep, and surprised by their reaction to maybe something that's happening in the political world. You think, oh, I never really thought anybody would look at it like that. Um, so I would define myself as a kind of wet conservative, kind of uh, middle middle class type guy. But in this group, I've got there's a red hot socialist that you know that you know has very strong views, and there's also people that think Donald Trump's actually a brilliant guy. So you can imagine that there's some quite sort of interesting chats happen from time to time, all kind of respecting each other's space, so nobody gets too wound into anything. So they kind of back off if they think, "Oh, I don't want to offend you," but you know. So yeah, it's interesting.
You've had, I hope it's all right to mention it, you've had um, some physical things in the last year or two as
Well,
part,
I
a
have,
normal part
yeah.
of aging, I guess.
Yeah, it's all bloody thing. Your body, basically, my dad, well, your grandpa was a doctor. I always remember him saying to me when I complained about some ailment when I was, I think, about 31 or 32. And he said, what you have to realize is that your body's in decline from the age of 19. So it's actually just going one way. And it's never going to get better. It's always going to keep sliding that way. You can try and artificially manipulate it and, make yourself very fit for a bit, but it will drop back very quickly and almost spring back to the position you should be in because there is a life cycle. And I'm hitting that, sort of like I'm beginning to realize that, um, you can't, it sounds bizarre, but even bending down to pick something up, I go, oh, shit, yeah, I can do it. So stuff like that. But I think in April, I started getting problems, palpitations, and went to the doctor and had an ECG. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you the whole thing. It's not that interesting. But the nurse straight away said, "Oh, you need to see the doctor." And I thought, "Oh, oh, And he came down straight away. Well, he didn't rush down. I had to wait for him to come down. He came down and he sort of said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "It looks like you got AF, which is uh, arterial fibrillation."
Atrial fibrillation.
Yeah, arterial fibrillation. So he said, put you on some drugs and you should be okay. But you're going to be on drugs for the rest of your life. And don't worry about it. Loads of people get it. Um, but I went on the drugs and it sort of I felt absolutely dreadful, really, like I wasn't really with anything. So I'm lucky enough to have private health. So I got a referral to a consultant who measured me, and I had to wear something for a week and all that. It turns out I've got a really bad form of AF. So with AF, you could have it like twice a year, or you could have it a lot. And I was in AF 70% of the time, which is like
Mm.
really quite serious. Um, or quite, quite dangerous as well, because you could have a heart attack or a stroke or something. So anyway, cut a long story short, I went to see some fella in London who did a little operation called ablation, which gave me fixed it. But the whole process was taught me about death, because your horizon, instead of being there, is suddenly here, and so coming to terms with actually dying. Um, yeah, that was quite a private experience, not one to share really, but it is quite a big thing. And
Yeah,
I'm sure that's contributed to my refocus on things and my desire to not to be sort of like lost in the weeds of
yeah.
life.
And you've lost people as well since we began this conversation.
Well, we
You,
have, the death of Isabel, my sister-in-law, was quite a shock, really, because not only had my brother died 3 years earlier, um, it's when your siblings start dying, you kind of it does tell you something about your life.
mm,
So yeah, it's been a quite a demanding emotionally 3 or 4 years.
yeah, and we lost Grandpa.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But what can you do? It's life.
It's life.
Yeah.
Maybe, Dad, I'll finish by asking you these questions that you wrote to me in
Yeah. Okay.
about your rethinking of this. Um, so first one is about legacy. What will you be remembered for?
Um,
And do you care? Or maybe what do
yeah,
you
no,
want to be remembered for?
yeah, and just because I ask the questions doesn't mean to say I know the answers.
No, you might not.
So I have to answer this by saying I'm not. In terms of legacy, do I want to leave a legacy? Yes, I do.
Mm.
Do I know what it is? Not really. I think it's about, um, sort of having some kind of structure and togetherness so that everybody is connected and stays connected inside the family. That would be the best I hope for.
Yeah, and my experience is that you've been working on that for a long time.
I'd say,
You've been encouraging people to be close geographically, which has kind of worked gradually. Everyone's
yeah,
gathered up in a relatively close place, Cornwall. Mm. And you've tried to facilitate connection as much as possible, and it's fairly successful,
yeah,
I'd
I
say.
I think that's good. I think that has been, successful in that sense. But I think the responsibility I feel I have is to teach like your generation that you have to do the same thing with the family. If you want the family to stay together, if you value the family, you have to actively promote the family and find opportunities to push us together because um, some of the people in the family won't do that. They'll just not put the effort in. They'll not really put themselves out or and I understand that that's the case. I can't, you can't make people do things, but I think it's a dreadful shame if it doesn't happen. So my legacy is broadly around family cohesion and keeping people together.
Mm, yeah. What gave you the greatest pleasure in your life?
in my life. My wife.
Mm. And what is now the greatest pleasure?
It's a bit too complicated. I think it's a big question.
It's a beast, yeah. The next one is what caused the most pain?
Death.
Mm. What are your concerns for the next 20 or 30 years?
Um, Health, I'd say. Oh, Janet, myself. That would be the main concern.
Have you been lucky in love or not?
Yeah. Very,
Mm.
very.
Major regrets?
None.
Level of fulfillment?
High.
If you could do it all again, would you?
Yeah, I would. I wouldn't change anything.
Thank you.
Yeah. Didn't expect to get emotional. They must be good questions.
Yeah, they are. I think they are.
Mm,
Okay. Any final thoughts before I end the recording, Dad?
no, I'm fine.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for this.
Okay.
Oh, we're just picking up to finish this interview and discussion off. So, yeah, Dad, I'm gonna ask you these questions again. You said your wife gave you the greatest pleasure, Janet, my
Yeah.
stepmom.
Yeah.
Next question is, what is now the greatest pleasure?
What is now the greatest pleasure is my wife. So no real change there. And my family. My family and watching my family expand and watching them sort of be successful and not successful and making their own lives, I suppose. It's not really any more than that.
Okay. What do you think it was that touched something yesterday when I asked you that? You,
Um, it wasn't connected to that question. I was thinking about my dad.
yeah, yeah. It's just right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every time he comes up. Yeah. And then that leads into this next question. What has caused you the most pain?
Yeah. I think it's losing people
Mm,
when you even when you expect it, it is terrible.
yeah.
And it's very hard to adjust to it. And the grieving process is quite long.
You,
At the time you don't really at the time of these deaths, I just didn't really think about them. I know that sounds a bit weird. I just dealt with the situation. But afterwards,
Mm.
sort of comes back, keeps coming
Yeah.
back.
I guess there was a lot to do and a lot to sort out. You sorted out the funerals really well, helped everyone get over there to Ireland,
Yeah,
and
and th I think that's a useful way of dealing with things because it sort of concentrates your mind on other things, but it's more the kind of when you start to reflect on things. And
mm,
also, I think when you're getting older, you're starting to sort of put your life into some kind of context and how everything fits together and how, at some point it's going to end. So, you're seeing people die and you're not going to see them again. So it's a big
mm.
thing.
Do you have any regrets around that bit? So obviously you don't know what it feels like to lose a brother or to lose your father until it happens.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you regret about?
No,
Uh,
not at all. No, I
yeah.
think, the cards I was dealt, I think I played them as best I could in the relationships that I had, but was my brother and my dad, and also my mother, who is sadly you're gonna die soon.
Mm. Um, okay. And there are these other questions. What are your concerns for the next 20 or 30 years?
This is increasingly causing me um, concern because it's kind of related in a sense to what sort of legacy or what kind of world you're leaving when you finally check out.
Mm.
And I suppose the kind of big things that really concern me are things that I think are going to affect my family. Um, and it's going to sound maybe a bit crass, but I think AI is going to totally disrupt the social fabric of our societies, and it's going to create a very dangerous environment for my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. It's a world that I can't even start to think about what it's going to look like and how I'm sure hopefully will clever people will come up with a new a new world order, but not at the moment. It just seems so dreadful. Our rules-based society has kind of disappeared. We're in a world that is run by three or four bullies, and we're manipulated by them continuously. So you've got AI, you've got the world order sort of disappearing, and then
You're
because
talking about polarization on top of the technology, which is uh,
uh,
there's a level there's social polarization going on across lots of different levels, and then you've got the technology of AI that maybe is uh, turbocharging that
yeah, well, I think
division.
there's sort of the AI is the kind of means a process that can be exploited by people that have their own agenda that doesn't suit the masses. But that's not really what I'm kind of making 2 points, I hope. The first one is that AI and how it will affect the social fabric of society and what people do and how they live their lives. And, our tax system is based on the fact we all work and make a contribution, and that way we can have an NHS and a police service and things
Well,
like
we
that.
don't all work, but
Well, that's your view. I mean, just from my
yeah,
seat, it sort of works quite well. I'm quite happy
yeah,
with it, with the way things work in the world. I understand the rules of the game.
yeah.
I can get upset about the tax system and think it's a bit unfair, but broadly speaking, I'm happy to pay tax. It all kind of works, but it only works because we're all, or most of us, are working. If you change it fundamentally, then it starts to implode and things go wrong. So I'm deeply concerned about that. I'm deeply concerned about the world order and the sort of rules-based society that we once had. You might not like all the politics, but there were sort of ways of controlling situations. I don't think that exists now. I think we have a very different kind of world. We've got, three or four people that seem to directly and indirectly control what happens. And I think that's scary. And I suppose that the last bit, which concerns me probably more because I'm Jewish, there has been a massive increase in anti-Semitism, and I feel really uncomfortable. Again, not for me, but for any people in my family that follow the Jewish line. I feel it's a grim future.
In England
In England,
specifically? Yeah.
yeah, I'm afraid the story of the wandering Jew is has come back again, and
Mm. You grew up in the wasteland post-war kind of hangover from that, didn't you? That was
I
the
did, yeah,
atmosphere
and I grew up in a situation in a tiny minority. We were very small numbers of people
in
living
Dublin.
in Dublin in a very Catholic world, who really knew little about Jews apart from the fact they murdered Christ. And so that was a kind of it was something that I have been always aware of. And whilst I wouldn't say I experienced any great deal of anti-Semitism in my life, thank God, I indirectly have witnessed quite a lot of it. But I can see it just massively out of control now. And the problem is it builds up extremism on the other side as well, and it polarizes and causes all sorts of problems.
So, where is the anti-Semitism level now compared to the rest of your life?
So if it was at 2, I think it's at 7. So it
Mm,
is a warning.
yeah.
It is a warning, and in all honesty, the only safe place to be now is either if you're Jewish and you want to continue to be Jewish and bring your family into that sort of way of life, is you need to move to Israel or you need to move to the States. I don't think Britain can protect Jews the way it could do once.
Mm, pretty grim.
Graham, yeah, great.
Hmm. Um, okay, is that it for your fears? What are you most afraid
Yeah, I
of?
think that's it for the fears. I don't have anything. There's nothing else. I mean, I think
Yeah.
those three things are quite big things to occupy your mind. And I know I'm always sending you stuff from newspapers and articles and things like that because I do worry about it and I can see it. It's just bubbling along there.
It's been interesting for me and Dan, my brother, to
Mm.
see that happen to you.
Mm.
It's finally the penny's dropped.
Yeah. Now, I think the strange thing is, and it is quite strange, is that my dad was, I'm probably like my dad is now when I was a kid. So my dad would always be talking about they're going to get us, they're going to kill us, and we need to protect ourselves. You need to learn how to fight. You need to,
He he
so
he did a bit of fighting,
he did
street
a fair
fighting.
amount of fighting. And of course, I'm like the world's worst fighter. I can't even fight. I've never had a fight in my life,
You're
physical
good at
fight.
arguing though.
Good at arguing, but not very physical. But his views now are quite entrenched with me, only because of what I've seen over the last 5 or 6 years. But
Mm.
our societal mix is changing, and it's no. I don't have any disrespect for any group of people inside that society, but um, because this, the power of the Muslim community now, and their, very strong views about Israel and Jews in general, uh, they have a voice and they're expressing it, and it's causing unrest, and people who share those kind of views are growing.
Mm. Mm. Okay. Um, just the final bit the bit about AI.
Yeah.
what exactly is your fear there? Is it about technology making lots and lots of jobs obsolete, and so the tax revenue system reaches an inflection point where it can't fund the state, and then that nothing works, sort of thing.
Nothing works. So
Yeah.
that's one aspect of it. I think the second aspect of it is more troubling, really, in the sense that, you know, work gives you pleasure, and knowing how to work, and enjoy going to work, and enjoy having a fulfilling day is really important.
Mm.
Um, but because AI is going to take away a great deal of anything from being a solicitor to, planning
Accountant.
an accountant, or anything that requires thought process, is a lot of it is going to disappear. A lot of it is going to be very positive. I mean, I'm not a Luddite. I can see that. I mean, I was reading about how much more effective cancer scans are, breast cancer scans are, using AI than actually using a human eye to detect a cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's loads of good stuff with it, but because of the impact of what it's capable of doing, uh, it's going to change the structure of society.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing that in young people because they've grown up with the internet. And for example, Google Maps, I use Google Maps whenever I go on a long journey, and I probably wouldn't be able to find my way to Leicester now off the top of my head. Whereas when I was first driving, I used to drive all over Europe
Mm.
without that. So I
Yeah.
think our brains atrophy, or certain functions of our mind become dormant.
Mm.
I've got a new phone and I can't get Chat GPT to work on it. And I think it's quite good because I've become quite dependent on using it to save myself effort to
Mm.
think. It's not it's not good, is it?
No.
Okay. Few other questions here. Have you been lucky in love or not?
I've been extremely lucky in love, I'm happy to say.
Any major regrets?
Uh, I don't have any regrets at all. And that might sound, I hope it doesn't sound arrogant. It's not intended to. It's just, I haven't. I
Mm.
can't think of anything I'd like to do again better, because I learn from the mistakes. I kind of welcome the mistakes.
Yeah, well, that's the point of regrets, that they often carry good stuff, lessons.
Mm.
They're
Yeah,
important, and then you
and
work through that.
yeah, think about why it didn't work, and think, oh, yeah, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again.
Mm. Your level of fulfillment.
It's really high. I mean, I sort of, and I see it in a, not just in a work sense, just in a kind of living sense. I have to get that fulfillment every day, whatever I do. So I hate wasting time. So I try and make everything pay.
Mm. And if you could do it all again.
Yeah, I would totally. Wouldn't change a thing.
Mm. And do you have any last words for anyone watching this who might be in your neck of the woods, maybe approaching 70, uh, who hasn't really started this process of reflecting yet?
Well, it's good. It's exciting. You're sort of two-thirds through your life, but you've got a third to go. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit. I like to think I've got a bit more in the tank than I have. But if you think you've got another big slug of life, to create a whole load of new adventures and new excitements and new relationships and new discoveries, it's great. It's a fantastic time to be alive in
Mm.
that sense at this age.
And is there anything for people like you, or maybe this is more personal to you, so about your fears that you were just telling us about? Could there be any meaning in you being of service in somehow to the in service of the things that you're concerned about? You're talking about, in a way, you're talking about the generations that you won't get to meet because you'll be gone, but the the archetype of the elder, or the archetype of the king even. He works for 7 generations that come after him, and obviously he won't meet all of those generations, but he's doing work that will sow the seeds for good things.
Well, I think no, really, Zach, because I don't know enough about it. I can't be of any
Mm.
great assistance. I'm kind of like an observer that's a bit stunned by what's happening. And I keep talking about it to everybody in the hope that something's going to happen, somebody's going to tell me something, or I'm going to learn a bit more about it. I think the only thing I would say to the future generations is the importance of family and keeping the family together. And it doesn't just happen. You've got to really work hard to keep your family together. And I really, really want anybody that's connected with me to hear that and to invest in our family.
Mm. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I always gave as good as I got. And to me, those are important principles. When I was very young, and it was very important that I was aware of my Jewishness, which was always important to me. And people walked on Jews in those days. The English,
It's the church.
the English were the only people to save Jews. They saved 10,000 children.
From the camps. You know when they took
No,
it?
before, when this is 1938.
Yeah, but after the camps they took in a lot of people.
Yeah,
But you know how many they took in here? 2 children.
2. Do you know who De Valera was?
No.
No.
He was the Prime Minister of Ireland, excuse me, during the war years. And when Hitler committed suicide in April 30th, 1945, you know that, don't you?
He remembers the dates like that.
De Valera went round to the German embassy
And sympathised and everything.
sympathised with the death of Hitler.
Which is ridiculous. So he was
That
really not
tells enough, that
He was-
explains enough why I'm very dubious about the Irish.
But that was in 1945, love. Not now.
I'm very simple. That way I just believe in God. And
You say prayers every night.
I certainly don't ignore Jesus. Had an experience when I was about 14 or 15. I read about the Holy Shroud.
The shroud, yeah.
And I read this, it was in the newspaper, and I read the story of Jesus. He was crucified and so on.
And they
And,
said the Jews had done it and they didn't.
And it played on my mind really hard, so much so that I couldn't sleep. And I was tossing and turning in bed, and I still couldn't sleep. And then suddenly, very suddenly, it was lifted out of my mind, and I fell into a connection with God. And the same thing with Margaret was having an operation, hysterectomy, and I was very sick, absolutely.
I thought I got cancer.
And then suddenly, I was doing the surgery, and God help those poor patients, because my mind was with you. And suddenly, the same experience, I knew everything was all right. And it happened like that. It lifted out of my mind.
But I think,
And to me,
I think that's because you were praying to God that I'd be all right.
no,
The way
no,
I'd look at it.
no. I was so sudden. It was too sudden for that on both occasions. And to me, that was a connection with God. And I certainly believe in
But you
God.
just lifted off your worries.
And I don't know what awaits the human being when he dies.
He's always asking me, will we be married?
But I pray that I'll know and love my wife after death, and that there will be a connection.
But you pray that. You see, I believe it. That's the difference between us. You pray that, but I believe it. I really believe.
Yeah, well, being a doctor, I don't assume
Being
anything.
a doctor's got nothing to do with
It does, my training.
Say if I had a son who you're never going to meet, you know, as an adult.
You will actually. You'll meet you'll meet your son. Wait till you see. Because he's going to live.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Well, he can meet you because we can show him.
I would say.
But it's one way.
Just say.
I would say,
Be a good lad.
it's a very simple thing. Everybody should treat everything on merit. Never assume anything.